Hey there folks, today's video is going to be about moving to Alaska, specifically moving to Alaska off the highway system. First two items are very closely related. One, what to bring with, and two, how are you going to bring it? In our case, number two influenced number one. We brought everything in suitcases, more on that later. What we did pack in our suitcases were clothing, of course. Footwear, clothes, coats, hats, gloves, that kind of thing. We packed a little more cold weather clothing than we probably should have. We should have packed a little more warm weather clothing without realizing that it gets warmer up here in the summer than we thought. Bath essentials, toothbrushes, toothpaste, deodorants, that kind of thing. Before we left, we went to Costco and kind of stocked up on some of those items and packed a little bit ahead so we didn't have to order it after we got here. Pet supplies, we packed some of our pet supplies. Mind you, we didn't pack a whole box of milk bones, but we did pack some treats and leashes and booties and that kind of thing for our pets. We also packed some hobby stuff. I packed music equipment, or I packed some art supplies. I also packed a PlayStation so that I could do some gaming during the cold winter months. Surprisingly, I haven't done it. Most of my time's been taken up doing these videos and playing with my music. The last thing that we packed were some of the smaller knick-knack things to make this place feel more like home. Some things to hang on the wall, small things that could be fit in a suitcase. We have some tapestries that were really easy to fold up and put in a suitcase. And what was also nice is that we were able to wrap some of the smaller things that we brought up here. Additionally, we used towels as wraps in our suitcase to kind of add filler and to create some cushioning within our suitcase. So how we brought things up here. There are different ways to get your things to Alaska. When you're off the highway system, however, you're much more limited. You're not going to ship your things in a pod or a U-Haul shipping container to Nome. That's just not going to happen. What you can do is you can ship totes in the cargo area of the airplane. However, when we wanted to do this, we were told we needed to be part of the known shipper program with the Alaska Airlines. This required that we fill out a form, pay a fee, then the TSA would get a hold of us, send out a representative to vet us, and then we'd become part of the known shipper program, and then of course we would have to pay to ship those things as part of the flight anyway. We did not go that route. We packed everything in suitcases. All the things that we brought up here came up in suitcases. You could consider shipping stuff up here via UPS or FedEx, but I will caution you that is ridiculously expensive. I shipped a box up to Aura that was maybe 12 inches by 12 inches and didn't weigh a ton. I shipped it up here to our post office box and it cost me $80. So a 12 inch by 12 inch box that didn't weigh a ton is that expensive. Imagine trying to ship up a box of household goods. So keep in mind that packing and moving up here using suitcases was the easiest for us and maybe the easiest for you. But also you have to realize that suitcases can't weigh over 50 pounds. And each suitcase was $100 to check beyond the first two. That brings us to another point. Point 3, plan your flight. So if you're moving with suitcases, you have to plan your flights very carefully so that you don't have to uncheck your bags at any one of your layovers unless your plan is to stay there for an overnight and you have help getting your luggage in and out of an airport. Any layover longer than 12 hours, the airline will require you to uncheck your bags. So in my case, I had a dog and 10 suitcases. There was no way I would be able to uncheck my bags and recheck them in. So what I did when I planned my flight, and the same thing with my wife, is that we planned our flights carefully so that none of our layovers exceeded 12 hours. That's difficult to do when you're coming from the Midwest or further, particularly now that they don't have as many flights coming up to Nome in particular. Another thing we did, because we were moving with pets, is that we flew first class. I know that that can be prohibitively expensive. If you're coming up here during the off season, it is relatively cheaper. I'm not sure how much airfare has changed since September of 2020. When we flew up here, it was relatively affordable to fly first class. So if you can, do that. The nice thing about it, one of the nice things about it, particularly if you have a pet, is that there are first class lounges in most airports. And so you can kind of get away into a quieter area. If you've got 30 some odd hours of travel, that getaway space is very, very nice. Just a good place to put your head down for a while. I fell asleep in the Anchorage first class lounge. So that was number 3. Number 4, let's stay with luggage for a bit. So you can check firearms on Alaska Airlines. It needs to be in a TSA approved case, hard case, and it has to be locked. When you get up to check-in, you say, one of my cases is a firearm. They'll have you sign a piece of paper to declare the firearm. They'll put a piece in it. You'll keep a piece with you. You'll lock it. And you can then put it in a suitcase that you're already checking and only pay to check that suitcase that it's in. Or you can pay to check that as a separate item, and then you'll take it to another area of the airport where they will do their scan on it and put it on the airplane. And the last thing about luggage that's really nice if you can is to get all hard-sided luggage that's a unique color. It's just so much easier when you get picked up at the end of your flight. Here's my suitcases. That said, 10 suitcases is hard to come by and would be an expensive purchase. So what we ended up doing was asking friends and family and neighbors and everybody else if they had old defunct luggage they no longer wanted, knowing full well that we were going to move up here with it, use it a couple of times, and then it was probably going to be given to a secondhand store when we landed where we wanted to land. So number 5, let's talk about your carry-on. There's a few things to consider with your carry-on. 1, just your carry-on in general and what you want to bring, and 2, your carry-on if you're coming with a pet. So let's just talk about what to bring. Bring a pillow. I've been online and I've seen things where they say, no, don't bring a pillow. Yeah, bring a pillow. I brought a pillow. My wife brought a pillow. It's 35 hours in an airport with a dog for us. We brought a pillow. It was just so much easier. I put it on the floor on the airplane. The dog laid on it. I used it when I was in Anchorage laying on the floor trying to catch some Z's after it had been 20 some odd hours of flying. Bring your pet stuff, bring any meds that you need for your pet, bring any of the other things that you need, documentation, that kind of thing for your pet. That's important. It's great to have that nice and organized. If you can, put it in a baggie within your stuff. Bring a sweater or sweatshirt. It may be warm where you are and you're leaving. It may be warm up here when you land, but it's probably not going to be warm on that airplane, nor will it be warm in airports. They always seem to be cold. Pack any medications that you need, as well as any things to refresh yourself, a travel toothbrush, a small tube of toothpaste, that kind of thing. Just things that you can go into a bathroom and freshen up. If you've got a long flight like I did, 35 hours, you're gonna want something to help your breath. Pack some snacks. It doesn't hurt to pack some snacks. It's expensive at the airport, so if you want to get snacks at the airport, you can, but remember, you're a captive audience and they can jack those prices up. And the last thing to bring is something to entertain yourself. Bring a book, bring a Kindle, bring a laptop, something like that to just entertain yourself. Keep in mind, however, that if you have a pet, the stuff that you bring that you put into your carry-on needs to be easily packed and unpacked. Number 6, things to consider when traveling with a pet. So the first thing about traveling with a pet is that the pet areas at airports, the pet relief areas are nasty. Absolutely disgusting, and neither of our pets were having it. Neither of our dogs would go there. So that said, we had to take our dogs out of the airport and come back through security multiple times. So this goes back to your carry-on. One thing you want to consider when packing your carry-on is to pack it in a way that it's easily unpacked and repacked multiple times and quickly. If you're letting your dog out and you're running through security a bunch of times, you want to be able to pull everything out and put it all back in really quickly and really easily while also managing a pet. I keep pointing over here because he's over here laying on the chair. That's if you bring your pet on the plane with you, which you can do if you qualify to register your pet as an emotional support animal, which is what we did. That said, you could also have your pet shipped. I don't know anything about the companies that do this. I don't know the quality of care that they give your pet should you choose to go this route. I don't know if they walk your dogs. I don't know anything about these things. I just know that it's a possibility you can have your pet shipped cross country if you like. There were things to consider about taking a pet, is that there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through. You have to have a vet visit within 10 days of flying. You have to have proof that the dog has all its vaccinations and everything like that. With the ESA, the emotional support animal stuff, there was documentation you had to have done for that. So there's a lot to consider and a lot to plan for. So if you're gonna go that route, just make sure you do your research early. I touched on it a little bit earlier with documentation around an emotional support animal. Put this in a folder. Put it in a folder with any travel permits that you have. Today's day and age, a lot of the small communities will make sure that you sign travel documentation. And you can also then throw your boarding passes and anything else that you pick up along the way in this folder. It's easy to get into and to show any paperwork that to whomever you need to show it to. Number 8. Have a place lined up to stay before you move up here. Moving up here without a place to stay can get very expensive, particularly during tourist season, assuming we ever have tourist seasons again. You don't want to stay in a hotel for an extended period of time. There are rentals in places like Nome. They are month-to-month rentals. So if you have to jump into something and pay a little bit more for a couple of months until you can find something that's perfect for you, do that. I'm just saying, find a place before you move up here so that you have everything lined up. Another key about moving up here is having some sort of transportation. Depending on where you're moving, it could be a small enough village that you could walk everywhere you go. However, in the dead of winter, walking with 2 bags of groceries or an armful of groceries can be very cold and very frustrating. So if you can, shortly after getting up here, find transportation, arrange for transportation when you get up here. It will save you a lot of time and energy. We bought an ATV as soon as we got up here. Our plan had been for a side-by-side, but because of the world we live in and factories not running at full tilt, we could only find an ATV, which is great. It's great because we can use it for recreation as well as transportation. Number 10 is just across the board, regardless if you're on the highway system or not. If you come up here, quarantine. Figure out how you're going to get your groceries. If you know somebody up here, see if they'll deliver your groceries. Call the grocery store, see if they'll deliver. Make sure that you have your amenities before you lined up, before you come up here and you have to sit inside for a while. So there you have it. 10 things to consider when moving to remote Alaska off the highway system. Hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share, subscribe, and do all the other things. And we'll come at you again.